It was just after 8 on a quiet Tuesday morning when the silence in the Steel Horizon clubhouse shifted. Sunlight filtered through the dusty blinds, catching on the floating flecks in the air. Coffee steamed in half-full mugs. Tools lay scattered across the benches, and the familiar smell of grease and gasoline clung to everything. Cooper Hayes was hunched over an old carburetor, hands deep in a rebuild that didn't need to be rushed. No one spoke much in the mornings, not until the second cup. That was just the rhythm of the place. Then the door creaked open without a knock. He was a boy, 14, maybe a thin 15 if you looked closely. His jacket hung off his shoulders like it belonged to an older brother. His dark hair was unkempt, his sneakers worn. But it was the way he held the small red notebook against his chest that turned heads. Not like it was just paper, but something alive, like it was holding him up. Cooper barely looked up. "We're closed, kid." The boy didn't blink. His voice came low, steady. "I counted 48 lies this week." The room froze. Adam, halfway through pouring a refill, stopped mid-motion. The coffee pot hovered above the mug. Felix turned from his bench, a bolt still clutched in his fingers. Lauren, seated near the back, with supply invoices spread before her, set her pen down carefully and looked toward the door. Cooper stood slowly, wiping his hands on a stained rag. "That's a lot of lies. You keeping score for fun?" "4 were yours," the boy said. His tone was calm, not confrontational, just factual. But the air in the room shifted, heavier now. Adam let out a low whistle. Someone in the back laughed, once, but it died quick when the kid flipped open his notebook and held it out. The pages were filled with tight, careful writing, dates, names, phrases, arrows connecting one point to another. It looked like a detective's logbook, or maybe the early pages of a conspiracy theorist. But something about it was different. The penmanship was too precise, the organization too meticulous. This wasn't theory, it was observation. Cooper took the notebook, flipping a few pages. The boy flinched, just a little, as if being separated from it caused him physical discomfort. Lauren rose from her seat and walked closer. Her voice was quiet. "You're Lucas Walker, Richard's son."
The boy gave no reaction. He kept his eyes on Cooper's hands, watching the way the man turned the pages. "Your father runs the United Path Foundation," Lauren continued. "He funds half the youth programs in town, donates to the shelter, runs the holiday drives." "He funds them with money that isn't his," Lucas said, "and the food trucks don't go where he says they do." No one spoke. Cooper flipped another page. There were route diagrams, license plate numbers, timestamps. One path looped through town 3 nights in a row, ending at a warehouse on the edge of the industrial district. "Why bring this to us?" Cooper asked. Lucas's eyes flicked up, finally meeting his. "Because one of your members lives on Crescent Drive, and that white delivery truck passed your shop 3 nights straight, between 11 and midnight." The room, once full of coffee steam and quiet work, had turned into something else. This wasn't just a kid with stories. This was the start of something much bigger. Cooper set the notebook down on the table beside the carburetor, careful not to smudge the ink. Lucas didn't sit. He stood beside the table, fingers pressed against the notebook's corner, like he was afraid someone might take it. Felix came closer, arms crossed, while Adam leaned against the counter. No one said a word, not yet. "The handwriting's clean," Adam murmured. "This ain't just scribbles." "It's not," Lucas replied. "I started recording things about 6 months ago. Little things, where Dad went, what he said, whether it matched what happened later." Lauren looked over the pages, her eyes narrowing. "This is a pattern." Lucas nodded. "He talks to people on the phone, says it's about donations or speaking engagements, but then trucks move. Sometimes cash changes hands. Sometimes the trucks go to places not listed in the foundation reports."
Cooper glanced at a route map drawn in blue ink. It circled downtown and looped toward the old industrial park, Pine Ridge, a place with more broken windows than businesses these days. "You followed a truck?" Lucas nodded. 3 nights in a row, same one, white box truck with the United Path logo. Passed your shop at the same time. I tracked it to a warehouse on Alder Street. It never stops at the food bank like Dad says.
Adam gave a low whistle again, but this time it didn't sound impressed. Kids running recon. Lucas kept talking, not for effect, but because he had more to say. Inside the notebook are records of license plates. I cross-referenced some of them. One belongs to a contractor Dad hired last year. Another is registered to a company in Nevada, but that company doesn't actually exist. I tried to trace it. Turns out it's a shell corporation. Lauren raised an eyebrow. "You know what that means?" "It means," Lucas said quietly, "somebody's hiding money." Cooper flipped another page. There were clipped news articles about the Foundation's public activities, speeches his father gave, photos from award ceremonies, charity auctions. But next to each one, Lucas had written notes in pencil, things the speech left out, places his father claimed to be but wasn't. "You really think your dad's doing something illegal?" Cooper asked. "I don't think," Lucas said flatly. "I know. He lies, constantly, and not just to strangers, to me, to everyone, about my mom, too." That shifted the room again. Cooper looked up. "Your mom?" "She's been gone for 6 months, supposedly working overseas on some medical outreach trip, but she didn't pack her favorite book, her coffee mug was still in the sink, and her phone bill came last month." Felix frowned. "You mean her name's still on the account?" Lucas nodded. "I checked the activity. There were no international calls, just local ones, and one to a number I traced back to a property out near Lake Hallen, a retreat center, Foundation-owned, no neighbors for miles." The table grew quiet. Adam finally said, "You sure about all this?" Lucas looked at him, not defiant, just steady. "I would not be here if I wasn't." Lauren glanced at Cooper. "We can verify the truck route. I know someone who works at the gas station on 5th. Their security cam covers the road toward the warehouse." "I'll check the DMV for plate numbers," Felix added. Cooper nodded slowly. "Let's start digging." Lucas finally let go of the notebook. His hand trembled just slightly as he did. He stepped back, exhaled, then sat on the edge of a workbench like he had not let himself rest in weeks. The clubhouse shifted again. The tools were still there, the grease still on their hands, but now so was something else, a question heavier than any carburetor on the table.
What if the kid was right? What if no one else had been paying attention until now? Lucas had barely touched the cup of cocoa Lauren made for him. It sat on the edge of the table, cooling slowly while the rest of the group gathered around the notebook he had left open. Cooper leaned in, tracing one of the hand-drawn maps with his calloused fingers. The trail was clear. Each route, each timestamp, each plate number told a story. But something else had caught his attention. It was the last page, where Lucas had written a list of Foundation-owned properties, one of which had a red circle around it. Pine Ridge Retreat Center. Lauren tilted her head. "This place out near Lake Hallen? You said your mom called it once?" Lucas nodded. "That number showed up on her phone record 2 weeks before she disappeared. One call, just under 4 minutes." "And you said she's been gone for 6 months?" "Exactly 6, Lucas replied. "Dad said it was a last-minute humanitarian mission, but she left behind her favorite scarf, her book, and her coffee mug was still on the sink. It didn't make sense." Adam opened his laptop and began typing. "Let me check something. If she flew overseas, there should be a record. Passport activity, flight manifest, something." Cooper crossed his arms, watching the kid. "You sure your mom didn't leave voluntarily?" Lucas did not flinch. "If she had, she would have told me. She never even said goodbye." Silence settled again. Lauren shifted, then turned to Felix. "What about Foundation finances? Can we access any of it?" Felix nodded. "If it's a registered nonprofit, it files IRS Form 990, public record." Edwin, who had returned from the back room with a fresh pot of coffee and a curious frown, spoke up. I can dig deeper than that. If Richard Walker is laundering funds, he's not doing it through official channels, but we can start with the paper trail. Over the next hour, the clubhouse became something else entirely. Tools were pushed aside, laptops opened, phones dialed. Felix called in a favor from an old friend at City Hall. Adam used a backdoor database for business licenses. Edwin began cross-referencing the charity's listed donations against recipient organizations. He looked up after 20 minutes.
"There's a problem," he said. "According to the reports, the United Path Foundation has donated over $200,000 to overseas relief efforts in the past year." "Okay," Cooper said slowly. "So where's the problem?" Edwin turned his screen. "I called 2 of those international partners, one in Guatemala, one in Haiti. Neither received a single shipment. No money, no goods, not even contact." Lauren exhaled. "So where did the money go?" "That," Edwin said, "is what we are going to find out." Adam glanced over his shoulder. "I got something too. There's no record of a Sarah Walker leaving the country in the last 12 months. No passport activity, no boarding passes under her name, nothing." Lucas's voice came low but certain. "Because she never left." Lauren's voice dropped. "Then where is she?" Edwin pulled up a digital property map on his screen. "Here's the retreat center. Look at this." He zoomed in. "The foundation owns that land. The building is registered as a wellness center, isolated about 15 miles out. Power and water are still active." Felix leaned in. "So someone is there." "Maybe," Edwin said, "but here's what makes it interesting." He opened another window. "This center has been flagged twice by the county, once for improper storage, once for vehicle traffic after hours." "Let me guess," Lauren said. "Both cases dismissed." Edwin nodded. "By a lawyer representing the foundation, and that lawyer works for Richard Walker." Cooper stepped back, rubbing his face. The pieces were falling together too easily, and that made him nervous. Lucas looked at the screen. His jaw tightened. "I think that's where she is." Nobody argued, not this time. Cooper turned toward Lauren. "Get your gear. We're going for a drive." Lucas's eyes flicked toward the door, toward the fading afternoon light spilling through the windows. He didn't say thank you. He just stood and reached for his notebook, because for the first time in 6 months, someone was finally listening. They left just after sunset. 3 bikes and 1 black SUV took the back road out of town, headlights off until they reached the old county line. The air was crisp, the kind of cold that settled deep in your jacket and made every movement sharper. The retreat center sat 15 miles outside city limits, tucked behind a curtain of trees and silence. Cooper killed the engine 100 yards from the gravel driveway. Catherine pulled up beside him, her bike nearly soundless as it coasted over the dirt. Up on the ridge, Adam and Felix were already in position, watching through binoculars from behind the tree line. Edwin's voice crackled in through the earpiece. "Cameras are looped. You have a 10-minute window before the feed repeats." Cooper moved first. He reached the utility box mounted beside the pole, popped the panel, and flipped the breaker. Across the field, the lights inside the retreat center flickered, then died. In the darkness, shadows moved. Voices rose in confusion. Flashlights beamed through windows. Someone inside yelled something sharp, but it was muffled by the thick glass. Cooper and Catherine reached the back door. It was locked, but the frame was old. Catherine leaned in with a tension wrench and popped it within seconds. They slipped inside. The hallway smelled of lemon cleaner and something older, like dust and fear. Kitchen to the left, living area straight ahead, stairs to the right. Cooper gave a hand signal. Catherine nodded and moved toward the kitchen. Sarah was there. She stood beside the counter, frozen by the sudden dark. A single lantern flickered near the sink.
She was thinner than the photo Lucas had shown them. Her eyes were sunken, her arms tense. When she saw Catherine, she did not scream. She blinked once, then again. Catherine raised a finger to her lips. Sarah just nodded. The guard beside her turned, startled by movement, reaching for a radio at his belt. Cooper was on him in 2 strides, a quick strike to the wrist, the radio clattered to the floor, another hit, sharp and fast, and the man went down without a sound. "Sarah," whispered Catherine, "we are here to get you out. Can you walk?" Sarah nodded, voice barely a breath. "Is Lucas safe?" "He is the reason we are here," said Catherine. "Come on." They moved fast, Sarah between them. Cooper led the way. Catherine stayed at the rear. They passed through the hallway, back toward the door they came through. Adam's voice came through the comms, low and tight. "Second guard circling the east side, 30 seconds. They reached the back door just as a flashlight beam swept over the rear steps. They froze. The beam paused, then moved on. Cooper pushed the door open slowly. No creak. They slipped out. The bikes were parked behind a thicket of scrub pine, engines cold and hidden beneath camo tarps. They were 20 yards from the tree line when Cooper's phone buzzed. One vibration. A message from Edwin. "Problem. Check Lucas's room." Cooper stopped. "What house?" Edwin replied a moment later. "Motion sensor tripped in Lucas's room, but Lucas is not home." Catherine's breath caught. "Where is he?" No one knew. Then the phone rang. Cooper answered. Richard Walker's voice came through, calm and polished. "I assume you have something that belongs to me?" he said. "Where is the boy?" Cooper asked. "Safe," Richard replied, "for now. But I think it is time we talk. A fair exchange. My wife for my son." Cooper clenched his jaw. "You are bluffing." Richard chuckled softly. "Am I? Check the nightstand in his room. I left you something." Back in town, Edwin was already pulling the feed from the camera in Lucas's room. He paused. Louise read the note aloud. "You should have stopped watching." They found the old seminary 30 minutes later. It sat at the end of a dirt road carved into the woods, forgotten by time. The building loomed ahead, half of the roof caved in, windows boarded haphazardly. There was only one light glowing from within, dim and flickering. A white van was parked out front. Adam took the back entrance while Cooper and Catherine approached from the front, slow and careful. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air was thick with mildew and silence. Cooper moved through the narrow hallway, past collapsed pews and broken furniture, until he reached the main hall. There, beneath a skylight cracked with vines, Lucas sat in a metal folding chair. His hands were bound behind him, but his back was straight, his face calm. Richard Walker paced nearby, phone in hand. He looked like a man waiting for confirmation. "You made this harder than it needed to be," Richard said, his voice echoing in the empty space. "Your mother understood eventually. Silence protects people. Truth burns everything down." Lucas did not answer. His eyes stayed fixed, focused. Cooper stepped into view. "That your excuse now, Richard?" The man turned, startled, but not surprised. He held up his phone. On the screen, a live video feed showed Sarah in another room, bound again, one of his men standing over her. "You walk away," Richard said calmly. "I talk to my son. We all forget tonight happened." But Lucas spoke first. 48, he said. Richard frowned. "What?" 48 lies. That is how many I counted. I finished the list." He recited them slowly. The trucks that never went to the shelters, the checks written to ghost organizations, the shell companies, the retreat center, the missing reports, the night his mother vanished, every step, every manipulation, every face involved. Then he named the license plates, one by one. Cooper glanced toward his earpiece. Edwin was listening, recording and uploading, Edwin confirmed. Richard's face darkened. "You do not understand how the world works," he hissed. "I understand better than you think," Lucas said. Richard moved, fast, but not fast enough. Cooper tackled him mid-stride, pinned him to the ground. Catherine moved in, knife drawn, and cut Lucas free. Footsteps echoed behind them. Adam called out, "Sarah's safe! We have her!" Sirens broke the night moments later. Louise had made the call, and this time someone listened. Lucas stood slowly. His wrists were raw, but his eyes were clear. He looked down at his father, once untouchable, now just a man with a ruined plan, and then turned away. He followed Cooper out of the building, out into the night. Outside, under the halo of patrol lights, Sarah waited. She stood beside a sheriff's deputy, her arms trembling. When she saw Lucas, she took one step forward and stopped. Her breath caught. She did not know what to say. Neither did he. And then he moved. He ran to her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and buried his face in her coat like he was 10 years old again. She held him, tight, for a long, long time. Because when the storm is over, and the dust settles, and the lies fall away, sometimes the truth is a kid with a notebook who never gave up. And all he ever needed was for someone to believe him. What would you have done if you were standing in Cooper's boots that night? Would you have believed the boy with the red notebook? Leave us your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to Embrace the Journey, where stories of quiet bravery remind us that real strength often speaks in whispers. Until next time, ride safe, stay kind, and never stop listening.